All right. Ricardo, thanks for being a guest today on my podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, and we just started off with saying, who is Ricardo Washington, and how did you get started in iOS development?
Okay, so background there. Um, in college, I was into sports. I played football and track and was in kinesiology. So right after college, I went and became a personal trainer in Santa Barbara and then LA. The training was fun. It was good. I had good clients. But after about a year, I realized you can be booked up all day, but it's only so much hours in a day. So I was like, how can I reach more people? Everybody wants one or two things. You're going to lose weight or you want to gain muscle. And that comes down to nutrition and a good program. It's very simple. So
Right,
instead of training one person at a time, I was like, where can I create these programs and reach more people?
right, right,
And so that's when I had the deal. Like I got to be able to make an app that can reach everybody instead of because there's only so much time in my day.
right,
And then I get in my MacBook, I Google around how to make an app, and you get all these tutorials. I had no previous background in anything with computers.
right,
So all of that stuff, I was just getting pissed off. Like I don't understand what's going on.
right. Have you ever coded before that? No.
Nah, never,
Okay.
never. I never imagined I would be an engineer today. Like when you're growing up, like I never saw this coming. But I'm
Nice.
glad I stumbled upon it because with building software, there's always new things to learn, new challenges. So my brain loves to always be crunching something.
Right,
And
right.
so you can never really get bored in this field
Yeah,
because even if you get good at maybe apps, you can go do back end networking, this security. There's so many other domains.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but I'm having fun.
it stimulates your mind if you keep learning,
Exactly.
every day. So yeah,
But I've always been passionate about Apple and their products, and so I really love the iOS space I'm in.
yeah,
Um, they have such great detail on everything that they do, from just little gestures and animations, transitions,
right,
and so you have to really um, focus on all the details to,
right,
to try to get close to achieve that level of greatness. So
right.
I'm
Yeah,
but
it's going to show like once you look at the front end and everything is polished and nice,
yeah,
kind of get curious like what's going on underneath.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Um, so back to training. So from training, Googling around boot camps. I want to learn this fast.
You're
And
right.
so the two biggest options was Dev Mountain in Utah, and it was one in New York called Flatiron, I want to say.
Oh yes, I've heard of it.
And Flatiron was more expensive and didn't give housing. You had to find your own housing. And Dev Mountain was only like 10K, and housing came included, so it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, Bear Mountain it is. And also I
Yeah,
like the fact that well, in my head at the time,
right,
I was like, Salt Lake City, it sounds like less distractions there than New York. I just want to
right,
go. So it's like it was a 3-point bonus thing. So
right,
definitely it wasn't even a question anymore.
right.
I remember
And
getting the first. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and on top of that, you get to be surrounded by like-minded people
With the
uh,
same goals.
with the same goals. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where we met as well.
Yeah. That's where it all started.
That's where it all started. I
A
was in
whole
what 2017.
2017. It was May. I want to say May 21st, or May 22nd.
Yeah, it was around May in the
Yeah.
summertime.
What's today's date?
Uh, yeah, today's May. May
It's May
26th.
23rd. It was May 20. We started May 22nd, 2017. I'll never forget it because I
Oh,
started realtor May
yes.
21st, 2018. I was like, wow. And my goal was to have a job
Uh-huh.
before my year timeline of when I started Dead Mountain. So
Gotcha. Right.
that's why those dates will always be burned into.
Right. Right. Nice.
Um, we
So
go there.
May 22nd, 2017
Yep.
for 3 months.
That's when it all began.
So yeah, that was a fun ride. Yeah, you guys were pretty cool.
And I remember my first week. My first week, I wasn't really grasping too much. and
Right.
we had the week one test. It was the journal app, and I failed miserably. And I went to the bathroom after the test, and I'm looking in the mirror at myself, and I'm about to cry. I'm like, did I make the wrong choice?
Okay.
Should I just stay the trainer? Is this over my head? You know?
Right, right.
And then at the last time, I looked at myself, and I was like, you're here now. You got to give this everything you got. Get back in there. You know, you got to repeat. You got to repeat. But you
Right,
know,
right,
now's not the time to give up. You know?
right, right. Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's all about repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition until you get it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember I would go into the labs, you know, back every night and weekend, just to put in extra time because I wanted to catch up to you smart guys who was passing all these tests. I was like, the only way I can catch up, I got to put in extra time, you know.
Right, yeah.
And so I repeated, I think week 1, 2, and 3, the first 3 weeks.
So before the boot camp, did you do any tutorials ahead of that or
I tried to do a couple, but like
okay.
I said, getting into Xcode and then you see all these errors popping up, and it just was like, what is going on? I don't know how to fix these,
Right, right.
you know.
You need
Uh,
somebody to guide you through.
yeah.
Right, right.
So being a Dead Mountain with the mentors and all the students there to have somebody, hey, what's this mean? And then now you can start to understand exactly what's going on,
Right, right.
and that's how you're able to grow. And it's cool to watch my own growth through all this time. You know, like how much better you got from working with people that's smarter than you and seeing other code bases and seeing how they done things and seeing where they messed up at. And
Right.
um,
Yeah.
so from there, you know, we went to the boot camp. We got out a couple apps as students. Um, the mentor thing, I went back to LA for right after the boot camp,
Right.
and I applied for a couple. What'd you say?
That's when you built the Six Pack app, right?
That was the first one, the student version.
Yes.
there was it was a mess for sure. I don't even go open that project up. Like,
Oh,
no,
okay.
stay away
Right.
from that.
Was it working and everything, or is just like everything was
It was working, but
okay?
I just hacked it together. You know, at the
Right. Right.
time, I just hacked a working piece of no, it wasn't
Gotcha.
scalable. It wasn't following solid principles in the architectures. It was a lot of things. There was no, you know, the fetching performance wasn't great.
Right. Right. Right.
There's all these things as a student I wasn't even aware of, you know.
Gotcha.
And
Right.
so there was no unit testing going on back then in any of my projects.
And
There was no test, you know.
right.
And
Right.
so that's just goes to show the levels you go through in your whatever journey you're in. And so we always aspire to get better and better every day.
Right. And at that point, you think that you built the world's greatest thing, you know. Probably.
I knew it wasn't I know it
Oh,
wasn't close to great, but
okay.
I was just happy
Right.
I got something working.
Work. Okay.
That was like, because like I said, I came from personal training, so for me to come and make an app work, I was like, you did it, you know, you got something working, you got it in the app store. How much better can we get? Let's figure this
Right.
out, you know.
You made the first step.
So the best thing I did was just not give up, you know. And
Right.
actually, for me, being a mentor helped me speed up my learning like times 10. Because once I had to go and teach the curriculum, I really had to understand all the moving parts. And I was finding myself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
going through the curriculum and all the projects
Right.
beforehand. I'd be like, oh, now it makes sense. You know,
Right.
even just getting started, I remember object-oriented programming. I couldn't understand for the life of me. I was like, what do you mean object? You know,
Right.
I
Right.
just couldn't grasp it. And
Right.
in
You're
classes,
getting that deeper knowledge
yeah,
as opposed to like surface level
yeah.
knowledge. Right. Right.
And
That's,
I remember so many times, you know, Andrew Matson, he was the director, he would be teaching and everything is going over my head and I'll raise my hand and I'll be like, I don't even know what to ask you. I'm so confused. I don't even know how to get my question right to what you just said, you know?
right.
I remember one day he was going over, you know, the coordinated persistent containers. I couldn't grasp any of it. I was like, what is he talking about? So the more you stay in it, the more the layers will unravel and you get these deeper levels of understanding of everything, you know?
Mm-hmm. And on top of that, just practicing with projects.
Yep.
just actually coding.
And
Right,
like you said, so the two biggest things at the time,
right,
I kept rebuilding. I mean, Spencer's advice to me was, keep rebuilding journal without looking at anything. Just think about what you need to get done. So
right,
I built journal maybe like 25 times in like 2 weeks just to make sure I understood CRUD, create, read, update. I had to
right,
understand all that stuff. Getting the user interaction from the user,
right,
accepting the stuff from the text fields, processing it. So it's like cool to
right,
really just think what needs to happen, and then
right.
you can code it out. It's, before, when I first got there, I was trying to remember every line of code. Okay, this line of code was here, that
Right.
was there, and I was remembering the code instead of really understanding. But sometimes that's just the learning process. Sometimes you remember it,
Exactly.
and then it'll lead you into understanding it.
Right.
And then I
I
remember
think I think for me one of the biggest challenges I had was passing data from one screen to another.
on the segues.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
segues. And then passing it back as well. That was one of the hardest things to learn.
And Aaron actually did a good job explaining that to me.
Yeah.
That's why I love Aaron. He was always able to take something and break it down so my brain can understand it,
Right, right.
And he was good at explaining things in such
Yeah.
a
Aaron was
way.
really good. He was a really good instructor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he still there or no? No.
Aaron?
Yes.
No,
All right.
he's been a developer at one of
Okay.
the churches in Salt Lake. He's permanent
Nice.
and he's liking that, so
Nice. Nice. Okay.
he's set up. He's good to go. Um,
Yeah.
and then the 2 weeks before a realtor,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing. My weakness at the time was networking apps. Fetching JSON, parsing it, decoding it, and so I was like, if this is your weakness, you got to turn it into a strength. You can't go into here with this big weakness of yours. So I built maybe like 15 different networking apps in like one weekend. Like I was in the lab from literally like Friday till Monday, just
Oh.
building like 4 or 5 each day. Just finding APIs, building stuff, putting on screen, passing. So I
Right.
really like, no, you're not starting this process with networking being a weakness. Like, no, I'm not allowing it.
Right. And
And
those
that
were the
definitely
days. And those were the days before the Codable protocol. Really, I
was
think.
codable around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
think it
time.
had just came out.
Oh.
Well, I
Okay.
did it. I did it both.
Right.
I definitely was doing it both ways.
Okay.
So, but yeah, most of my projects, yeah, codable. Use the
Nice.
JSON encoder and decoder,
Right.
serialize. Um, but so
Right.
sure enough, my first interview with Realtor was a networking challenge. I was like, thank the Lord, I was practicing all this.
Right.
And so that came
Perfect.
paid off immediately.
Oh, you didn't do like any whiteboarding?
So no, the
Okay.
first actual technical Realtor
Okay.
was straight up, let's go, let's do this networking app, get it working,
Right.
and did that. And then luckily I didn't have to do the first phone screen because post put a technical phone screen asking you questions. They didn't do that. They jumped me straight to the networking portion, and then from the networking to the on-site. And so the on-site was 5 interviews. I had two whiteboarding, uh, one architecture, one cultural fit, and then one was on like testing and stuff.
Nice. Okay.
And um, so that was a fun process. Like I had my first on-site interview at the
Right.
time, and to go through that long, like it's not easy as an engineer. The interviews aren't easy. This ain't like a regular job where you do a quick hour interview and it's over. You're gonna be there all day,
Right.
so you better come
Nice.
ready and ready to go. Um,
Nice.
and then when I
And
got into, oh, go ahead.
yeah, and so I would say this was like within the year after you started Deep Mountain, or I don't know,
Yeah,
after.
so in May we started the boot camp.
Yes.
In May, June, July, August. Around August, we finished up. I
Yes.
went home for a month and came back in October to mentor. And then from October to April, I was a mentor. I went home from April because I got that job offer like early April.
Okay.
And then I went home for a month just to relax. I left Bear Mountain, went back to Maryland, relaxed with the family for a month, and then I came back
Nice.
out here ready to work in May.
Right.
Um,
Wow, it's a really like a big radical change.
yeah, definitely. All in 1 year, you know?
Only 1 year, right?
And
So,
so
right,
Realtor, it was all native iOS. It was Swift, uh,
nice.
a networking app. We used core data for the model layer.
Right,
We had a really good, strong team. A lot
right,
of smart people who was teaching me so much, and I was able to learn so much from these engineers. And they went
right,
on to Twitter and Ubers and Googles and Amazons.
right.
Um,
Were you able to like collaborate with other like Android developers or designers, or it was all
oh yeah,
iOS?
yeah. So they have I think there's like 9 or 10 designers who always working for them, whatever project you're working on. You have to get the designs implemented in Pixel Perfect because they'll say, oh, this ain't right. This is just 2 points off. And oh, I gotta go fix it.
Right,
So
yeah,
they'll have to sign off on what you implemented before it even gets to the testers, the QA,
right, right,
because they're gonna come up to you. Did design sign up on this? And
right,
now you're gonna have to say, yep, oh yes, this is good to go, or
right,
not. You have to go fix it.
yeah. And in a way, it forces you to like improve your
Yeah.
design skills
So
and be
and,
pixel
and
perfect.
and I got really comfortable with auto layout and stack views. And
Right,
I think it's the design tool they was using. I want to say I forgot the name of it, but it gives
right,
you the dimensions and what they want. So it's easy
right,
to just map those to iOS
right,
and get it right.
right.
So
Perfect.
that's fun seeing, okay, you got a designer who can give you this professional grade of design skill. That's their skill set. And then you get to implement it and you get to see the live product before they even get to see the live product.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it must be really satisfying.
yeah.
Right.
Um, so where do we leave off at?
Oh,
we
uh,
we go down
uh,
memory lane of Dead Mountain. What was your next
yes,
question?
yeah. So that was what was it? Yeah. So what was your interest in it? Like, what got you interested to iOS, and why did you decide to make it a professional? You kind of told me that you wanted to scale to make an
So,
impact with
so
your
the
product.
first question is why iOS?
Yes.
The first question that was I got my first iPhone
Okay.
in 2009, 2010,
Okay. Nice.
and I fell in love as soon as I had it. Because before then I had like the Sidekick,
Right.
and I had a
Oh
Google phone
yeah.
before, a
Yeah.
G1. But once I seen the iPhone and it's in my hands, I immediately like I'm looking at the way it's designed and the way
Right.
everything is spelled. So once I got into programming, I was like, well, I use iPhone, so whatever I make, it has to be on the iPhone. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I always just been passionate about Apple and iOS, so that was a no-brainer of why iOS.
Okay.
Um, but why I really because I had my heart set on Rotor when I got there because of they had the same. It was native, Swift, core data, everything was native. That's what I really liked.
Right.
There's a lot of companies who use all the different dependencies, and that's always just causes us more headaches. And
Right.
so the fact that there was this native app, and I was able to go, and this is all the stuff I already know. So now I'm only going to get better in the stuff I already know about. So that was I didn't want to have to start my first job having to go maybe figure something else out already. I wanted to jump somewhere, help, show you I can, add to this code base, fix whatever you need fixed. And so
Right.
it was a perfect landing place for me for my first job. Um, I learned so much, just like everything that goes into the successful apps. Millions get spent on marketing each month. You got all these engineers, quality assurance to make sure you're shipping a stable product.
Right.
You got your product managers who come in with features, maybe thinking about other user experiences that will make it better. So millions of dollars is getting spent into making this. Like you look at all the great apps and you say you got one person making one app. You can't compare your app to your Instagrams and that. So
Right.
much millions of dollars go and engineers and efforts go into every little feature of
Mhm.
of each detail. It'll be
Right.
unfair to grade yourself against that. It's
Right.
come on. So
Right. Yeah.
um,
and they have like teams of software developers working on it.
And just on each screen is a whole team dedicated for just maybe just that screen, or maybe just a certain portion of the screen, depending on how complex or what's going on or how important that part of the business is.
right.
Um, so it's definitely, I learned so much.
Okay.
Looking forward to the new opportunities. I can't wait to get this app out. Core
Yeah.
Blast.
Tell us a little bit more about that app.
So
How's
the,
it today?
the Core Blast
Mhm.
six-pack app came about, just like I said,
Right.
people always like, Carter, how do you get your six-pack? And it's three things: nutrition, a consistent effort and working out 4 to 5 days a week, not nothing long or crazy. It's good 10-minute core workout that's efficient is what you need. And then you want to be able to consistently check on yourself. Like, am I going the right way? Because if you look in the mirror after 2 weeks of working out and eating right, supposedly you eating right, and you're not seeing no results, well, two things that happen. You haven't eaten what you're supposed to be eating, or it's time to put a little bit more intensity into the workouts. So this app has those three things in focus. One, notifications that you can pick whatever time you want to be reminded to work out at. Simplicity, so you as the user, you don't have to pick what workout you're going to do, because as a person, if you knew how to get a six-pack, you would have got it. So I don't even put that in your hands. You just come and press start. Everybody shows as a beginner. You go through a workout. As you complete workouts, you accumulate points. And as you get to certain points, the workouts will slowly get harder. We'll slowly add in harder exercises. So it's a progression. You're not going to get a sit-pack overnight. So it's just a plan to follow to keep you on track. All you got to do is come in, press start, do your workout, look at the meal plans, make sure you're eating that type of stuff, and then track your progress. So I try to make it as simple as possible for anybody who really wants to get it, you know?
Yeah, and the perfect thing about it, it's all at home as well.
Yep. So, no weights are needed. I try to make it as, I want you to have no excuse to not get started. You don't need nothing, you know? Come in, you press start. You know, I even got the exercise library so you can view the exercises that you're going to be doing beforehand, just in case you're not aware of what exercise you're going to be doing.
Gotcha. Right.
So in that project is fun because I got to learn a lot more about architecture. So architecture, I believe, is the most important piece to every engineer, because the better the architecture is, the more easily you can add and take out new features, the more you can test everything in the app. And so, actually, let me show you.
Nice. Yeah, so you have like unit tests going on?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Data architecture.
Clean architecture.
Awesome, yeah.
By a guy, Robert Martin, that's really, really, really good. He showed you how to, he's been in the game for like over 30 years. He worked on so many projects. So he just basically tells you all the pitfalls he already ran into, and here's how you do it the right way. I built so many different types of apps, and here's what stays the same, here's what changes, so here's what to do, you know?
Right.
So,
wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. So what's your architecture preference?
Right now, it's this, which is, so this pin architecture was made into a book called Clean Swift. And let me explain. So it's kind of like Viper, but it's not. So it's called a VIP pattern. So you got the view controller, interactor, and a presenter. But all of these three things are just protocols. So anybody can sign up and be the interactor for this view controller. Anybody can sign up to be this presenter. And it's a unidirectional flow of data. So what happens is you come in, your first view controller comes up, you know, your view did load gets called. And that's when you say, hey, interactor, I've loaded, and based off whatever the business needs are for that view, whatever it needs to show on screen, the view controller should be responsible for figuring out what needs to be on the screen. The interactor, that's the business logic. The business logic will go fetch that for you. So the view controller says, hey, I loaded here. I need a request interactor. Go and fetch me whatever I need so I can display or whatever.
Right.
The interactor, who has all the knowledge, can go and dispatch workers to your services. Hey, data fetcher, go fetch me data from Firebase. Let me know when you get back with it. Firebase will go get you the data, come back. The worker will come back to the interactor, give you what you need. You pass that model object over to the presenter saying, here's that, make a view model for it, and then update the view controller. Presenter takes the data, makes a view model, and says, hey, view controller, here's what you asked for, present this. So it's this circle of flow. So and testing makes it really easy. So all you got to do is test everything in the boundaries of the protocol. So
everything is like very modular and uses
exactly
single responsibility principle.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I noticed my view controller files are maybe max like 150 lines. No file is big. Like at Realtor, we have files that can be 2,000, 3,000 lines of code because we have so much going on. Not really
massive view controller.
Yeah, and those becomes headaches to test once you have methods that's doing more than one thing. You got you know, so it's really good to break everything down. It's going to make your life simpler. You want to reduce all the complexities as possible. Reduce the complexities, reduce dependencies.
Right. Yeah, me too. I try to choose for like 200 lines of code. Yeah. Once I reach that, I try to find ways to like refactor it, take out all the business logic.
Yeah.
And so usually it's like MVVM for that.
Yeah. So basically, whatever the object is, you got to ask it, does this go to this certain object? Does this behavior belong here, or do I need to create a new object to just handle that? Or so you got to just really ask yourself these type of questions when you're going through that process.
And so how do you prefer to do layout, your layout views? Do you do it like in code or in storyboard?
Yeah, definitely programmatically. It just, especially, I mean, if you're working on your own project, it could be either, but when you're working on a project with a lot of members who's interacting with all those files, it comes a headache. So even at Realtor, I did everything programmatic. It just, like I said, whatever is going to be less complexity and less prone to errors, that's the route I usually pick.
Right.
So everything programmatic, auto layout, you know, and that's just what I've grown. And that's what most companies in Silicon Valley do anyway. So you might as well, if you want to work out here, get used to programmatic, because all these big companies work programmatically for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. Programmatically, just have everything in one place.
Yeah.
And it's much easier for you to see all the changes, the version control over time.
Exactly. Exactly. So I would definitely point you anybody that direction if they want to know, you know, how to get be above, you know. But
Yes. All right.
What about you? What's your favorite architecture?
Oh yeah, definitely go with the MVVM.
Yeah.
And use RX Swift for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I never got into RX Swift. Tell me a little about that, and what's the pros and cons, and what benefit, like what made you get into that? Because I haven't touched it yet, really.
Right. So it's basically you're just having like observers and listeners. So you have your observers in your view model, and then whenever like you have data present, you have you listen to that, and then you have your listeners in your view controllers, and then once it figures out that there's a change that has happened, or it tells the view controller, hey, something is here, it's happening, and then you make the changes. So I really like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like what you're describing with your interrupters.
Yeah. So I think the architecture solves that problem. But if you don't have the right architecture, you're going to need RX Swift. So I think so I see what you're doing, because my view models will automatically get updated based off that whole flow.
Okay. And you were using like delegates with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, so each, I have to share a project with you as soon as we can go through it, but every view controller has an interactor and a presenter that's responsible. And also the last two things of it is the router. So the router is just a protocol basically saying, hey, I'll be the one responsible, because the view controller doesn't even know, if you push something, the view controller doesn't know who's going to be presented next. That's the router's job. The router is going to say, hey, I'll go talk to the interactor, find out what data needs to be passed, and I'll go and pass it to that next view controller for you. So I'm really the view controller just responsible for, hey, taking in input and giving output. For that, that's it. It doesn't have no idea about the business logic. It has, it doesn't know who's coming next. So I really, the architecture does a good job of breaking everything into its own piece. So everybody has a job to do.
Right.
Everybody needs to do the job.
Yeah, definitely. I want to dive into that architecture. I want to look into. I also like the fact it's all native.
Yep.
So I want to take a look at that.
I'll send you the book. It's clean, swift, and it comes. It's the first book is about the whole architecture and building an app so you can understand how it works. And it's so easy to understand. If you just go through that, you can go through it in like an hour and a half, and you'd be like, oh, And then the second book is the unit test part. So it goes through how to unit test the app, and then it'll show you how to do it with TDD. And then once you do that, it's like, oh, this is easy and fun now, So I had my velocity of building out features and finding bugs and fixing stuff has just improved so much just from the architecture.
Right. Nice. Yeah, definitely I want to check that out. But also, like, the other advantage of RX Strict is very similar to Combine.
Okay.
Have you worked with Combine yet?
Not. I watched the WWC video. I haven't had any need to work with it yet.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the same concepts of having observers and listeners as well. And once, you have your data ready, you have your listeners in your view controller.
Okay.
Looking forward to that's another thing I want to dive into as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's get let's get to the next section of the podcast.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You ready for the big test?
Ready.
All right, let's do this. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So the first question is, what can you use to store data in iOS?
This one, you got a lot of options. Do you want to save it locally? Do you want to save it remote?
Let's go with both.
Both.
Yes.
So I guess my top three things I'd say for locally, we have user defaults, which is, we can use that for storing small amounts of, things like preferences, maybe the user selected in your option screen.
Yes.
Or maybe some, Booleans to keep track of, hey, did they complete onboarding? Okay, we can store that. Yes, they completed that. We store that user default. We have the file manager. You can create, files of data that can be encoded and decoded to get data from. I'm actually using file manager right now to store all the exercises right now. And then another good option is core data, which is, a graph, a relational type of database where you can create these entities and set relationships between them. And those are the three, I think, most popular for persisting on the physical device.
And then we also have a keychain as well.
Yep, keychain. And as far as remote stuff, the top two for, especially just for if you're doing a personal app, it's going to be Firebase and CloudKit.
Yes.
At the bigger companies, they most likely either have their own backend or using AWS or GraphQL. So, the more money you got, you can go play with the bigger boys. But if you're just doing a smaller project, I would definitely recommend Firebase or CloudKit. And Firebase has always been a little bit faster, but it's also a dependency. And in this case, Google Firebase, they're stable. It's a stable dependency, so I wouldn't, say not use it, but just for the sake of, if you want to automate a project, you have CloudKit as well. So, like I say, if you can reduce your dependencies and complexities, it's always a better option to reduce the headaches later of any potential bugs that happen,
Right.
So yeah.
It's like pros and cons, so you gotta pick your poison, I guess.
Yep, you gotta weigh whatever the business needs, weigh whatever's best for that situation.
Yep. Nice. All right, next question. What is a completion handler?
A completion handler is another name is a callback. Um, it's a way to basically call a method, and you can declare what type of input is going to be there when you call it. So you can have a completion handler, say an optional string, and then when you call that method, you have to pass in some type of input with that that's going to be captured and passed back to the callback site. And that's basically, so say a good example to use a callback handler. You go and fetch some data, and you want to know when it's finished. So you can pass a completion handler, go in the background queue, fetch background data, and you call the completion handler once it gets that data, and then you can go back to the call, say, hey, here's the data that you asked for,
Yep.
So,
So
it's
you could say it helps with like your multi-threading synchronous calls as well.
What would you say?
Oh, it's like it's usually used with like synchronous operations.
Yeah, and they use it's a good way to be notified when some piece of work is done,
Yeah.
And also you can, like I said, with we're going to get into that Grand Central Dispatch, which is the whole operation of which queues things are running on. So you have to make sure you're not causing any problems with deadlocks and race conditions. So making sure you're on the right thread is a big part when you're using these things too.
Yeah, nice. And you want to use the main thread for all your UI work.
Or UI, anything that happens with the UI needs to be done on that main thread. Any type of processing of data, crunching of numbers, you definitely always want to put that on the background thread and not block your UI.
That's right. Yep. Perfect. What is code coverage?
Code coverage is just the percentage of your project that is fully unit tested. So you're going to make sure these numbers are high. You're going to make sure all your code is tested as possible. The faster, the more unit tests you have, the more you can guarantee, hey, this piece of code works, So that's how you basically have confidence in your code. The higher the unit test coverage, the more confident you can be. Yep, I'm pretty sure this works,
Right.
So you want
and a good helper to that is having a good architecture so that's testable.
Architecture comes first, for sure. And with that great architecture, you find out it's easily to test the stuff that you want to test. Because if you have a whole mango, these classes that do all these different things and these methods that do all these different things, you're going to find it's a headache to try to test those methods or the behaviors. So architecture always comes first with any project.
Nice. So what code coverage percentage do you shoot for? Like 80% or 90?
You always want to shoot for 100, but in a real case, like at a realtor,
yes,
it's not the highest. But
it's probably because of a legacy code.
Yeah. So if you shoot for 70%, we was much below that. And a lot of places are like you've even interview Apple, and theirs is or the same thing as realtors. I'm not gonna say the numbers, but it's like you realize like the big company with all this, like you said, this legacy code, and you really got to go in there and just kind of make your way, because the architecture is not going to be great on all these legacy code bases. So many people have came and worked on code bases and left, and so. But if you're definitely starting out with a fresh project, you should definitely aim for 100%.
Right. Okay. For sure. Nice. And next question: what is MVC?
That's a programming paradigm model view controller. It's one of the easiest ways to get started understanding. So M stands for model. That's going to be the blueprint of what your app really does. It's like, so if you say you have what's a good example? A simple example. So for my example, six-pack app. I have the two main models is a workout and the exercises. That's the model. Then you have the V, which is your views, and that's what's going to render the UI, accept the input, give output, and then you have the controller, which is the glue that goes and talks between the views and the models to update the view and model. No, that's the controller job to mediate between those two. So the model and view should never talk directly to each other in MVC. The model, talks to the controller does what it needs to do, and then say, hey, here you go, view. Here's what the model gave to me. It's a very easy, simple paradigm to get started in iOS.
Yes. And especially for like smaller applications.
Yeah.
All right. Next. What is NS user defaults?
This is a class that's used to persist things straight to device. It was meant to be, like I said, stored for smaller amounts of data. It's basically just a dictionary, and you can set keys in values and say here the user has viewed, even ints, all the first class citizens, like strings, ints, booleans, doubles, all that. You can say, hey, you can keep track of, maybe whenever the app loads, you can keep track, hey, and increment the count. This user has came to the app 10 times. You can save that to use defaults, and you can use this logic however you want to, but it's useful for saving small amounts of data locally to the device, and you can use it however you want.
Perfect. Yep. And next, what is an optional and a nil?
So this is one of the best features about Swift. It's a way to really keep your app safe. It's a state that basically, if you make something optional string, it's basically allowed to be nil, which basically means it's not set. This variable hasn't been set if it's nil. And so there's safe ways to access or check to see if there's anything in it. There's optional chaining, there's nil coalescing, there's ternary operator. So there's safe ways to make you can check, you can peek inside the box of the variable and say, hey, is anything in here? If not, don't do anything. But if there is, let me grab what's out of there and use it.
Yeah.
So
and you don't want to force unwrap it.
You definitely don't want to force unwrap an optional. It's not the best practice. You definitely, because there's so many safe ways to unwrap an optional. There's no really reason to force unwrap anything,
Exactly.
You can, I guess, if you were speeding through development, you can go ahead and just bang up around it, because sometimes you want to find out early, is this going to work or not? So in development, that's fine, but I would never ship production code with force unwraps. I would go and save and wrap everything, unit test everything, and then I would submit that to the master branch or release branch, or whatever. But
just have good error handling in there.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. And what is a UI stack view, and when do you use it?
A UI stack view is an element of UIKit, and it's just basically a container for your views. So you can set it up to be either vertical or horizontal, and you just basically give this stack view an array of views how you want laid out, and you set some properties on it like distribution, the axis, the spacing, and then stack view has auto layout, and it'll lay out these views for you. And I really like stack views. This makes it really easy to make these complex UIs, but what I have to worry about, only thing you need to constrain is the stack view itself. But the stack view handles all the constraints of the view that's inside, and based off those properties that you set. Stack view is definitely something you're going to want to know with auto layout. It'll make your process a lot easier. Instead of setting frames of views all over the place, use auto layout with stack views. It'll be much simpler.
Yeah, especially if you're working with like different size screens.
Oh yeah.
Right, like you're producing to an iPad or an iPhone.
Yeah.
What is the view controller lifecycle?
So it's basically 5 delegate methods to update you, to give you opportunity to do some type of work during this view control lifecycle. So you got view did load, view will appear, view did appear, view will disappear, and view did disappear. And so when view did load, maybe we wanted to, in my case, I want to send a request to my interactor. Hey, go fetch something. We need to update the views with some data. So that'll be a perfect time for me to send a request to my interactor. Hey, go fetch me some data.
Yeah.
Maybe when view did appear, you want to do an animation. So you might want to throw an animation in the view did appear. And then maybe when the view is about to disappear, you want to save something to use defaults or anything. So it just delegate methods to give you opportunities to, hey, here's what's happening with the view controller. Here's your chance to do something. So it's definitely a deep foundation of iOS, and you're going to need to know these things and use these things to get a good polished app out there.
Yeah. What is the difference between the frame and the bounds of a UI view?
It's a good one. So the frame is basically where you are on the screen, and the bounds is the drawing area. So the bounds is basically, they both have, a size, which is a width and a height, and they have a place of where they're at. But the frame is relative to the super view, and the bounds is relative to its own coordinate system. So you want to use a frame when you want to place that view somewhere. So here's your frame. But the bounds is actually the drawing area inside that view. So you use the bounds to draw, you use the frame for placement.
Right.
So you definitely want to use them in that way. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of why Apple made those.
Yeah, it was one of those concepts that took me a while to understand.
Yeah.
Frames and bounds. Yeah, nice. That's pretty much it.
Knocked it out.
knocked, knocked it out. Yeah, that's really good.
This was fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So I can't wait to see your channel blow up.
Hopefully, the fingers crossed.
So thanks for inviting me and asking me all those good questions.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for having on, coming on as guest. I really appreciate it. And yeah, just want to close it off. I want to say, do you have any advice for somebody that has seen this, listened to this, and they want to get started tomorrow?
If they want to get started, I would say get a trusted resource. Maybe they can start off. There's a book from Apple, Swift. It's got 6 chapters. It's basically like the same curriculum that we went through at Dead Mountain. Get started. Go in there. But if you want to start this, you got to have a mindset going in. Okay, I need to dedicate at least 6 months of straight this focus. 6 months to a year before I give up on this thing. So don't go in thinking it's going to be easy or so you need to have this mindset like, it's going to take some time, but as long as I don't give up, eventually everything's going to come together.
Try to do something every day, like an hour.
Every day, definitely. Make sure you can hopefully ask somebody a question, because getting over those early humps, like I said, like somebody like me with no background, having somebody to ask and understand the bigger picture of these things. Because it's all new material and new concepts that your brain has never even thought about before.
Right.
Because as an engineer, everything that you're coding is what your brain sees. You can't see, the objects that we're creating in the physical. If you just go build a building, you can see what you're building and say, oh, that's all, let me fix that. But when you're coding, you got to be able to see the problem and fix it mentally,
Right.
And especially like the concurrency, you got to be able to trace your code in your mind of what's happening. Oh, that's a timing issue happening. So it's definitely, but it's a skill you can develop just by sticking with it.
Yeah, repetition. Just repeat it.
Definitely stick with it. Never. You want to have a good balance. You want to know you're getting better, but you don't want to be to the point where, oh yeah, I don't need to learn anymore. No, you never get to that point. There's always something new to learn. So just you want to have that balance.
Up to now, we're still learning.
Yep.
Right.
So that's the balance you have. It's like, I'm good, but I can always get a lot better.
Yeah,
I'm not the greatest, but I'm not the worst. So if you keep that mindset, you'll be in a good spot. To keep learning And eventually, maybe one day you will be the greatest, but
Right.
just stay humble.
Nice. And yeah, to close it up, where can people reach you on the interwebs and all that?
LinkedIn, Riccardo Washington. The fitness Instagram is Forever Young Fitness.